Go.
Okay.
We're in Kilayim Tes Gimel.
Right.
Yeah, you also
Hand
there?
towel.
Good.
Right.
Hmm?
Hand.
Uh,
Go.
hand towels. Yeah.
Hand towels, scroll wrappers, bath towels do not come under the prohibition of Kilayim. Reb Eliezer forbids this. Barber's towels are forbidden on account of Kilayim.
So now,
Shrouds for
actually,
the
the halacha, it just we didn't do this in shir yesterday because we didn't have shir, but it's important to note here that Rabbi Eliezer actually is the halacha over here, even though he's stated here as a das yachid. Um, but we say that that even though towels are not actually a garment, we nonetheless do have to be careful of kilayim in towels because there's a benefit um, to the skin. So your hand gets warmed by them. It's almost like a garment, and therefore we do have to be careful about that. You can't have a towel that's made out of wool and linen.
um, shrouds for the dead and the pack saddle of a donkey do not come under the prohibition of Kilayim. One may not put on a pack saddle on his shoulder, even to take out dung on it.
So animals themselves are allowed to wear kilayim, that's fine, but a person can't use that pack saddle now to carry things out.
But we use the animal, if we're talking about a horse or a donkey, we use them for our benefit. We give
Yeah,
them
that's right.
benefit
That's fine. But the problem of shatnez is when a human wears it on their body
on their body.
as
Right.
clothing. It's fine for an
Right.
animal to wear kilayim.
Garment vendors may sell in the usual fashion, provided they do not react to the sun in the sun or to the rain in the rain, but the scrupulous suspend them over a staff behind them. Okay.
Okay, right. And similarly to the previous cases that we have the tofrek sus. If somebody is sewing something, so let's say a guy brings a garment and says, "Can you please fix my jacket?" And the jacket's full of shatnez. Tofrin kedarkan. So it's mutar for the Jewish as what do you say, seamstress or whatever the
Right, the seamer, right.
correct term is, to the tailor, let's say.
That's it.
Tailor, that's better. So it's much for the Jewish tailor to put this shatner's garment on his lap, and so okay. ובלבד שלא יזכבנו בחמה מפני החמה ובגשמים מפני הגשמים. And it shouldn't be that he's saying that he's sitting out in the sun and thinking, that's nice. I've got this garment on my lap, which is giving me a bit of shade over my legs, because then immediately then it becomes a garment, even though it's not his. So that would be asur. And similarly, if it's cold, if it's during winter, he's saying, it's nice to have this extra thing over my legs to keep them warm.
That's interesting because I thought that any climb you shouldn't have on your body at all. So here they're saying you can put it on. You
Well,
can
that's
put it.
what we just saw on the other in Mishnah Hay, is that
Okay.
somebody is selling. Let's say you've got a salesman in a non-Jewish factory, a clothing factory, and there's a linen jacket, and this is in the days before mannequins.
Right.
Okay, so if somebody says, "I want to see how this jacket looks," so you'd say, okay, so you don't just let any customer put on your stuff, because I mean, who knows when's the last time they took a bath.
Right.
Okay, so the rule is that if you want to see what the jacket looks like, the sales attendant will put it on for you, and you can see it on the sales attendant.
Wow.
Okay, and so now you've got a Jewish sales attendant who wants to model a shatner's jacket for a non-Jewish customer. Mutzar, says the Mishnah. But it says Hatsnuim Mafshilim Makel. But people who want to be machmir, want to be really safe for themselves, they put it on a stick, or in modern parlance, a mannequin.
It's interesting because I think the halacha is that if you're walking in the street and someone says, "Hey, do you realize you have chayim on? You're supposed to take your clothes off."
Yes, exactly.
So it's interesting that here he's saying you
Exactly,
can
but
put it
that's
on.
but that's if you that's if you're wearing it as clothing. Yeah, the guy is wearing it to be a mannequin. He's pretending to be a
Right.
mannequin, but
Right.
he's not allowed to have benefit from it. And he's not. I mean, benefit in terms of clothing.
Right.
He's not allowed to feel. Yeah, I'm happy to put on this jacket because it's keeping me warm or anything like that.
Right. Right.
Okay.
Okay.
It says, and similarly, our Mishnah Vav has the same ending as the previous Mishnah. Tofrim ba'aretz. But somebody who's Yarei Shemaim, who's modest and wants to stay far away from Avera, they do their sewing on the ground, so that they shouldn't come to any benefit from wearing the garment. Okay.
Very interesting. Okay.
Habirsin vabardasin dalmatikyon. So these are all different types of clothing. Okay, they're made out of wool, and they're named from the places that they come from. Hati explains that the birsin is kisoid temer dakim. It's a thin woolen cover. The bardasim are thicker ones. Dalmatikyon is a kind of woolen. It's also a woolen garment that comes from Dalmatia, and some say they're woolen pants. And min alos hapinon, there are shoes that are made from woolen from woolen offcuts. Maybe they're slippers.
Right.
Okay. Lo yilbash bahen ad she'yivdok. You're not allowed to wear these unless you check them. Okay, you have to, because it's very possible that you've got linen mixed up in them. It seems to be a common thing. Rabbi Yossi Omer, Habayim mechof hayam u'midinas hayam einan tzrichim bedeka mipnei shechez kasan bekanbos. Says Rabbi Yossi, things that come from the cities on the coast of the Mediterranean and from overseas, there's no need to check them, because the chazaka of these things is that if they do want to mix it with plant fibers, they'll use hemp rather than linen. Okay, and because linen is much more expensive over there, so therefore it's more economical to use hemp, and therefore you can rely on that. You don't have to worry. Umin al shel zered ein bo mishum kilayim, and a shoe made of zered or shel zerev is it's a shoe that's basically upholstered with a layer of wool for warming your feet. So maybe again like a slipper that's got something on the inside to warm the foot. Okay, ein bo mishum kilayim. He says you don't have to worry about kilayim. And the Rambam explains that this is a shoe that doesn't have a heel, and you but again it's like a slipper. That's sort of a house, something that you wear just inside the house. And even if it does contain kilayim, says the Rambam, even if it does contain kilayim, it's mutar to wear it because the skin of the foot is so hard that you don't actually have any benefit from other parts of the that don't have any benefit from the kilayim, which is an incredible thing to say. Okay, you're not having benefit as if it's because the sole of your foot is so thick. Anyway, all of the things that we see in this Mishnah is they're the industrial conditions of the world at the time of the Mishnah. So we can't really learn much halacha out of it, so like what comes from overseas. I mean, trading conditions have changed, and agriculture has changed, and manufacturing things have changed. I once actually had I once went to a factory shop in South Africa. I was buying myself a suit because it was nice. You get some good prices on clothes there, and I asked the sales attendant, a non-Jewish guy, if the thing I was buying contained any linen. He said, no way. He said, you don't make suits from linen. I'll show you. He says, actually, I've got one in stock that does contain linen. Let me show you what happens with linen suits. And he takes me to this one suit. It's nice and white, and the linen is nice because it's got that sort of creamy color.
Right.
And he showed me the suit, which was honest to goodness shatnez. I saw on the label it was like whatever 50% wool and 25% linen, and he said, look what happens to this jacket over here. You just crumple it once. He took it in his hand and crumpled it up a little bit, and the thing just remained creased. He says this is why we don't use linen, because linen you just breathe on it, look at it the wrong way, and it creases. Yeah. So anyone who wants to make a suit that stays looking nice, you don't use linen. It's silly.
That's interesting that they do that. Wow.
Yeah. So I mean, he had no idea why I was asking him. So it was like I was really getting him a Mesiach Lefi Tumo. He was just talking innocently, not trying to convince me to buy something because of religious objections. I was just asking him about linen, and he was just telling me completely honestly.
I thought you were going to say something like that. That they don't sell linen suits because they're so expensive and that kind of stuff. But this is whole different. Wow.
No, just practically, if you want your suit to remain looking nice, and you don't use linen. Yeah.
When you mentioned the word Dalmatian,
but generally, but where they are concerned about linen, actually, if you take your suit to the Schaffner's checkers, they don't look at the fibers with which the suit is made. They look at the stuffing inside the collar.
The collar, right? That's the big thing.
Because they take any offcuts of whatever they find on the floor and they stitch it into the collar just to give it some strength. So they have to check that.
Yeah, I know they always do that.
Yeah.
Funny when you mentioned Dalmatian, I was saying, did they do Dalmatian dogs?
Yeah, that's Kilayim of black and white.
Yeah, I was thinking.
Okay, Mishna Ches. Ein asa misham Kilayim ela tavoy ve'arug. Kilayim is talking about things that have been twisted and woven. So whenever threads, so the first thing that happens with a thread is that, I mean, when you take something like wool and you comb it and whatever, all you've got are these strands of fiber. So the first thing that has to happen is you have to twist it into a thread. That's tavoy. Okay, and arug is once it's woven into a fabric. Okay, so that's if you have kilayim in something that has not that lacks either of those things, it's not considered kilayim. Shenema lo silbash shatnez davar shehush shatnez. So the drasha is on the word shatnez. Davar shehu shua tavoy venuz. Shua tavoy venuz shatnez. You see how the words get pulled together. And Rabbi Shimon so that's not, you can't actually say that this is it's a drasha on the word, because there's no clear pshat on the word shatnez. It's just the way the Torah calls it. But so the drasha on that is shua tavoy vanuz. Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar Omer, Nalos Umeliz who is Aviv Shemaim Alav. He says there's another drasha on shatnez, is that somebody who wears it is Nilos Umeliz. He is disgraced is the word.
They say estranged over here.
Estranged. He's estranged, and estranges his father in heaven from himself.
Right.
Okay. Okay, Bob. Hey.
We're almost finished in here.
Wow. Yeah, that's right. We're almost done with Kilayim, and then we go on to Shemitah, Shivius.
Okay. You said we have Vav.
Vav Hey.
Vav Hey.
Yeah.
What is a serik tree? Any tree that bears no fruit. Reb Meir says all trees are serik trees except the olives and the fig tree. Reb Yossi says all such as are not planted through the whole fields are serik trees. Gaps in an aris, eight amas and somewhat more are, and among none of the measurements which the sages fixed in regard to the vineyard is there a little more, except in the case of the aris. What constitutes gaps in the aris? An aris laid waste in the middle, in which 5 veins are left on one side and 5 veins on the other side. If there are 8 amas, he may not bring seeds there. 8 amas and somewhat more, it is given its tillage space, and he may sow in the rest. An aris which projects beyond the wall from the corner and stops, it is given its tillage space, and the rest may be sown. Rabbi Yossi says if there are not 4 amas, then one may not bring seeds there. And we have a famous diagram over there.
Yeah, that's right. The corner diagram. Yeah. Okay, Demai Gimel Gimel.
If one finds fruit on the road and takes it in order to eat it, and then decides to put it away, he may not put it away before tithing it. But if he took it originally to prevent its getting lost, he's exempt. Whatever one may not sell in the state of Demai, one may not send to one's friend in the state of Demai. Rabbi Yossi allows when it is certain, but he must inform him. If one takes wheat to a Kuthin miller or to a miller who is an Amaretz, its condition is presumed unchanged in regard to Maestros and Shavias. To a non-Jewish miller, it is demai. If one deposits his fruit with a Kuthin or an Amaretz, its condition is presumed unchanged in regard to tites and Shavias, with a non-Jew as his fruit. Reb Shimon says demai. Okay. If one gives to a hostess, he tithes what he gives her and what he receives from her, because she is suspected of exchanging it. Rabbi Yossi said, "We are not responsible for deceivers. He tithes only what he receives from her."
Halacha doesn't follow Rabbi Yossi. We can't let anything out of our hands that has not been
Right.
mastered. Okay.
Sure.
Machshirin.
Okay. Dalid Hey. Regarding a bowl into which a leak dripped, the water that splashes and that overflows is not included in the law of a water is placed. If he took it in order to spill it out, Rabbi Shammai says it is included in the law of water is placed, but Beit Shammai says it is not included in the law of water is placed. If he placed the bowl so that the leak would drip into it, the water that splashes and that overflows, Beit Shammai says it is included in the law of water is placed, but the Beit Hillel says it is not included. If he took it in order to spill it out, both agree that the water is included in the law of water is placed. And regarding one who immerses or utensils or launders his garments in a cave, the water that comes up on his hands is included in the law of water is placed. But as for the water that comes up on his feet, it is not included in the law. If Elazar says it is impossible for him to descend unless his feet become wet, then even the water that comes up to his feet is included in the law of water is placed. Regarding a basket that is filled with termersin, and one placed it in a mikveh, he may stretch out his hand and take termersin from within the basket, and yet they are tahor. If he remove the termersin from the water, those that touch the basket are tameh. But as far as for the rest of the termersin, they are tahor. Regarding a radish in a cave, a nida may rinse it, and yet it is tahor. If she lifts it even a little bit from the water, it is tameh. Regarding produce that fell, right? Was that the end? We did.
No, one more.
Regarding produce that fell into a channel of water, and someone whose hands were tameh stretched out his hands and took it, his hands are tahor, but the produce is tahor. But if he intended that his hands be rinsed, his hands are tahor, but the produce included in the law of water is, but the produce is included in the law of water is placed.
It's amazing how much intention. The whole thing is about intention. So the same act, reaching in to pick up the fruit. If you pick it up, if something was what is it? It fell. So the fruit fell accidentally into the water. If it was deliberate, then it would immediately be bechiyutan. But since it was accidental, nothing happened. Now, if you stick your hand in to take it out, your hand became wet as well. If you were only trying to take out the fruit, okay, then that wasn't the intention. But if you wanted to say, I said, oh, good, I need to wash my hands anyway. You stick your hands in. This immediately the water that's on your hands is bechiyutan, and the fruit is now bechiyutan. Yeah. Okay.
You like the interesting article about the caves and the Dead Sea Scrolls?
Which one?
You didn't see the one about the Dead Sea
That
Scrolls?
Gershon sent
Yeah, I didn't.
with
I
that
didn't
big
see
with that huge basket.
Yeah, the basket and the mummy and all that's very interesting. And they said there are so many more caves up there they haven't explored.
Sounds fun. Jeez.
Yeah. Yeah. When I was there
Okay.
visiting, I always wanted to go up to the caves, but I knew that wasn't in my, kind of thing to do. It looked like that's when I was really young. But
Yeah.
okay.
Yud tes yud.
Yes, yes. Regarding a maspilas container that became too damaged to hold pomegranates, Ramea rules a tame, but the common rule a tahor, because when the primary function of a utensil is disabled, its secondary function is considered disabled as well. Okay. Regarding pillows, mattresses, sacks, and martufin that became damaged, these can become tame with midrash tuma.
Right, because now they can be used as a seat still.
See. A feed basket with a capacity of 4 calves, and a shepherd's pouch with a capacity of 5 calves, a caresis with a capacity of a saw, and a water skin with a capacity of 7 calves. Rabbi Yehuda says also a spice bag and a traveler's bag of any size. All these are susceptible to midrash tuma. But if any of them became damaged, they are tahor, because the primary function is disabled and the secondary function is disabled as well. A bagpipe is impervious to midrash tuma. Regarding a trial of pisonis, Beis Shammai says it is susceptible to midrash tuma, but Beis Hillel says it is only susceptible to becoming tamei with corpse tuma. Regarding a trough with a capacity of between two logs and 9 calves that is cracked, it's susceptible to becoming tamei with midrash tuma, and if one left it in the rain and it swelled, it is susceptible to becoming tamei with corpse tuma. If he then placed it in the east wind and it developed a crack, it is susceptible to midrash tuma. This is the stringency that applies to the remnant of wooden utensils over the original utensil. But a stringency that applies to the remnants of wicker to utensils over the original utensil is that originally they are not susceptible to tuma until their rims are secured. But after the rims are secured, even though the rims fell away, if only the smallest amount of the rim remains, they're tamei. Okay. I told you my story about bagpipes last time we did this. Right, we are on Gimel. Um,
Marcus Aleph
Aleph
Gimel, yeah.
Gimel, Aleph Gimel. We testify against so and so that he is liable, so 40 lashes. And they were found to be Zomimim. They are flogged 80, because of you shall not bear false witness against your neighbor, and you shall do to him as he planned to do. These are the words of Rameah, but the comments say they are flogged only 40 lashes.
Pause there for a second. It's worth coming back to the Mishnah that we did yesterday,
Okay.
because it was a similar thing where we saw Rabbi Meir yesterday. That if you testify against him that he's chayav 100 zuz to somebody else and they found to be zomim, they have to pay and they get flogged according to Rabbi Meir, because he says it's two separate things.
Right.
One is the love of the los hanevarecha et shaker. You testified falsely, so you get lashes for that, and then you've got kasher zamam. So you've got to, so if you can do kasher zamam to him, then you must. And the similar thing over here. So if they testify that somebody is liable to flogging, then they get flogged once for the avera of testifying falsely, and flogged another time for the fact that they tried kasher zamam.
But the comments say that he doesn't. Whoever pays doesn't get flogged.
That's correct.
Right.
The similar thing is over here, that he only gets flogged once. Why? Because of kasher zamam. Once you get in the kasher zamam, you don't get lashes for the false testimony.
Right.
However, in the earlier cases we saw, when somebody testifies against the kohen and says that he's a ben grusha, we don't say to the okay, so you can't take the witness and turn him into a ben grusha. So therefore, you must get flogged. And even if the witness is a kohen himself, we still don't, because we couldn't do it to a Yisrael. We also don't do it to the Kohen, and therefore he just gets lashes. Not he doesn't lose his status.
They divide. All right, they are flogged only for it. They divide payments of money, but they do not divide lashes. How so? If they testified against him that he owed another 200 zuz, and they were found to be zomimin, they divided it among themselves. But if they testified against him that he was liable to 40 lashes, and they found to be zomimin, each one is flogged 40 lashes.
Right, that's an interesting chiluk. So if there's a kasher zamam with money,
right,
then he gets then the 200 zuz gets split between the two witnesses, and each one only has to pay 100. But if it's lashes, they don't get. It's not that this one gets 20 and that one gets 20.
The witnesses do not become zomimin unless they discredit them personally. How so? If they said, we testify against so-and-so that he killed someone, and others say to them, how can you testify so-and-so when this murder victim was with us on the day that he was in such and such a place? They are not considered zomimin. But if they said to him, how can you testify so when you were with us on that day in such and such a place? They are considered zomimin, and they are executed by their testimony.
Right, so that's a very important thing about the Eidim Zomimim, is that if you just have contradictory testimony about the facts. So the Eidim came and said, we saw that Reuven killed Shimon, or killed somebody. We didn't see who it was, but we just saw that he killed somebody. However, whatever their testimony is, or we saw that this person was Mechalal Shabbos. And the other witnesses say, how can you say that about him? He was because because Reuven was with us at the time that you're saying. That's just contradictory testimony, because he's saying that he was doing this at the time, and we're saying that he was doing something else at the time. Okay, but when they discredit the witnesses personally, say, how can you say this about him? Because you were with us at the time. that was then that is that's Eidim Zomim, is when you personally discredit the witnesses, not just contradict their testimony.
If others came and they discredited them, and still others came and they discredited them, to even 100, all of them are executed. If Yehuda says this is a group of plotters, and only the first group is executed.
Mm-hmm. It looks like that the people are just hiring witnesses after witnesses. But the halacha follows the chachamim.
It always interested me this Mishna, these Mishnayos, because I mean, why would you think you can get away with this? You're going to really try to get away with it? You know, you're saying you were a witness to this thing, and people know you weren't there. You know, or you were there. You know,
well,
just,
I mean, it's a very narrow window that you've got to. I mean, in terms of capital cases, at least. In terms of capital cases or flogging cases, because the sentence is carried out immediately, and you've only got the time between the passing of the sentence and the actual execution in order for Eidim Zomim. That's why they do. Remember, we saw in Sanhedrin that they draw it out very slowly, and they say, and they walk through and they say, announce that this person is being executed al pi Eidim, and they announce who the Eidim were and what time the thing happened, so that if people are around and they hear about this, then they can come forward and make Eidim Zomimim. With monetary cases, it's a little easier, because even if you say, okay, we made him pay the 200 zuz to his friend, but then he can bring Eide Hazama later to say, and they can have the money refunded plus the penalty. So that can happen even later. Yeah.
Okay, Beta.
Yeah,
Beta. This is Beis Dalet. Beis Shammai says we may bring peace offerings on the Yom Tov, yet we may not lean on them, and we may not bring burnt offerings. But Beis Hillel says we may bring both peace and burnt offerings, and when we lean on them. Beis Shammai says a person may not warm up hot water for his feet unless it is fit for drinking, but Beis Hillel permits it. A person may make a bonfire and warm himself before it.
So this is actually a very fundamental thing. Like we assume that this mitoch thing, that since you're allowed to do a malacha for food, therefore you're allowed to do it for other things, which is big heterim for taking showers on Yom Tov, and or doing any kind of malacha that's permitted for food. Therefore, it's permitted for other reasons, and that's only a Beis Hillel thing. Beis Shammai wouldn't have allowed that.
In 3 matters, Rabbi Gamliel ruled stringently in accordance with the opinion of Beis Shammai. We may not insulate the hot water on Yom Tov for the Sabbath, and we may not put together a candlestick on Yom Tov, and we may not bake thick loaves of bread on Yom Tov, only with thin wafers. Rabbi Gamliel said, in all the days of my father's household, they would never bake thick loaves of bread on Yom Tov, only thin wafers. They said to him, what shall we do with your father's household? For they were stringent upon themselves, but allowed all of Israel to bake thick loaves of bread and cold-baked bread.
Right. So in other words, the house of Rabbi Gamliel, they paskened for Yisrael leniently, but for themselves they were machmir.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So we are all set for tomorrow, Mitzvah Shem.
Mitzvah Shem.
Hopefully everything should be okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to next week. You're going to be here all week, right? There's nothing.
Yeah, Mitzvah Shem.
Unless you're going away some morning or something. Okay. Terrific.
Okay.
Have a great day. Thank you,
You
Shaw.
too. Okay. Bye.